Hello, it's a milestone day here for researchers under the scope. And that's because 6 years ago, when the College of Medicine at the university started this podcast, the whole idea was to get to know its people, its biomedical scientists. We wanted to hear what motivates them, what they're working on, sort of understand better where that fits into the whole scientific picture for human health. Well, joining us today as we mark 100 episodes is the college's new Vice Dean of Biomedical Research. Dr. Linda Chelico is our guest today on Researchers Under the Scope. Well, it is Tuesday. It's the 7th of April, 2026, and I'm your host, Jen Cannell. And I guess this is a bit of a crystal ball day. So kind of looking back, we're definitely looking forward at where we're headed with biomedical research here at the University of Saskatchewan. We have biochemist and virologist Dr. Linda Chelico here with us, and some of you listeners know her. She spent the last couple of years as the department head of biochemistry, microbiology, and immunology. She was running the protein characterization and crystallization facility, and I think the last time we caught up with her, it was way back in episode 55, Just Give Mutants a Chance. That's the one where we were talking about the roots of some of these enzyme mutations, the ones that can lead to diseases like HIV and cancer. Dr. Linda Chelico joins us now. And hello, welcome back to Researchers Under the Scope.
Hi, Jen. It's nice to be back.
Well, I think there are congratulations due on so many fronts for you right now, but specifically the one where the College of Medicine went and added the title Vice Dean of Research Biomedical to your title. So well done. Congratulations. What's the plan?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there are a lot of plans in store, and it aligned really well with the College of Medicine actually doing a new strategic plan. And so they have a Paving Our Path to 2030 that they have designed to kind of set some goals. And it really, all the biomedical researchers were involved in it. It was like a really broad base of researchers that they took views and opinions and kind of strategic planning sessions. We were involved in them over months. And then, so it's actually really a perfect timing for me to be in this position because I was a researcher that contributed to the strategic plan. I was one of many voices that were saying the same thing, and then it got into the strategic plan. So definitely we still want to advance research, but research changes over time. And so I think right now the biggest thing we need is an investment in research infrastructure. And that came out in the strategic plan as well. So it's really a priority. I've only been in the job a month, and we already sent out a survey to all the researchers about what kind of equipment do you need to do your experiments. And so sometimes it involves a renovation. So they have this big name infrastructure, but it's basically like, what machine do you want to walk up to and what do you need to kind of run your experiments? So we already had a survey. We're going to form working groups, and we're going to organize people to apply for to granting agencies such as the Canadian Foundation for Innovation, which is also partly sponsored by the Saskatchewan Innovation Fund. Sometimes they partner to also sponsor, and then the university also chips in some money. So it's kind of multi-level, and people can apply for these grants to help offset the costs of research equipment. So that's a major thing. And then also adding to what you guys have been doing on the podcast within this office before I joined it, was that we really want to increase our visibility to the general public. So we publish scientific papers, and we give, we go to our conferences. But I think a lot of times people drive by this nice, shiny building, this new building that went up, 10 years ago, I think, on College Drive. And, they probably wonder, what are we doing in here? And so we want to show people what we're doing in here by more presence on social media. We're hoping to plan in this coming fall, like kind of a tour of the building. We can bring in general public. We'll be advertising that, and potential donors, because we can always need more support from many different areas, both grant funding and both private funding. If someone has a calling to support any type of disease and research towards a better cure or treatment for a disease, then that's what our researchers are doing. And so we want to bring you into the building, see what the building looks like, where research is done, who the researchers are. So we're going to be really pushing on that front to be more accessible to the community and let them know more what we're doing. And so that's kind of the two main things I'm focusing on now, which also came out as priorities in the strategic plan for College of Medicine.
Yeah. Well, and I know that, is it vice dean of research now, or do we have vice deans of research? How is this going to work?
Yeah, so I am one of, we're going to be a pair. So I'm the vice dean of research of Biomedical Sciences. And then there's also a vice dean of research, clinical health sciences and population health. So because College of Medicine has both biomedical scientists, which are often the people that have the PhD, and then there's clinical scientists, which are people with often the MD, although you can also have an MD and a PhD, different combinations.
Yeah.
But so those two halves have really specific needs. But that's another thing that I'm working with people to do in the OVDR office in College of Medicine is actually to increase the collaboration between the two sides. And so I really think having two deans, vice deans of research on both sides that kind of have the expertise from both sides can kind of help facilitate that collaboration more. So there was an in-person seminar called Mingling Minds that was envisioned, I think, many years ago by a College of Medicine clinician and a PhD biomedical scientist. And so they were bringing together the two halves, trying to enhance collaboration. And that did work really well for some people. And we're going to take another look at that Mingling Minds and try and kind of redo it and expand it in a more structured way to improve that. So we're waiting for that new other dean to come. They will be coming soon, but not yet. The position is being filled as we speak. So I think that that'll be really exciting, that we'll each kind of have our own specialty, but then we're also going to be working together and to kind of just make something more kind of cohesive. I guess that's the way I envision it, but I'll have to wait for that person to speak for themselves too. But hopefully I'll get to speak to them soon, that, how do we function together on the biomedical and clinical sides? Because they're really related, and we can do better research when we coexist together in kind of a continuum of research.
Well, and I think about the research that we've talked about on this podcast. I mean, we started it right in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. Like, everybody was still locked down and at home. And I know your predecessor, Marek Radomski, was really big on highlighting the people behind the microscopes. And I think that's really how the podcast was born. But if I look back into that crystal ball, like since 2020, what would be some of the biggest changes you've seen, especially in the world of biomedical research?
Well, I think definitely being a virologist, and that the 2020 was the pandemic. So in the field of virology, we dealt with in real time developing a vaccine and treatments for a pandemic virus. And the whole world of scientists came together to collaborate. And during that time, I think, previously, especially in an academic environment, scientists are told, like, you have to show your independence. You have to show you're an independent researcher to get tenure, to get promotion. And I think during that time in the virology community and other communities, scientific communities, therapeutics and things that were, and vaccines that were all trying to contribute to the, pandemic. If you didn't collaborate, you were actually, it was the opposite, right? Like, you had to collaborate to stay part of the community and to keep your kind of standing in the community. Like, everyone had to work together. That was kind of what everyone decided. And so I think that really changed the perception of collaborative research, that it's not that someone isn't independent. They're collaborating because we're supposed to be here for the greater good. People become scientists because they want to change something in the world. They want to develop a new treatment. They want to make people's lives better, right? They want to advance technology to improve our lives. And so I think that through academic promotion and tenure, sometimes you feel like you're in like a strange balance between those two worlds. And I think that the pandemic kind of was like, hey, we're all here to work together. We have to work together. And so I think, at least in the virology community, more collaborative papers and working together, people have a new insight on that and how to and judge that differently. But then I also think that in submitting my own grant of trying to get renewed my own virology research and talking to others, the expectation on that specific panel that judges virology grants was that it has to be translational, which means that it leading to the intent of the research is not fundamental discovery, which is where biomedical science usually lies, is that we're just discovering more about the system, the cell, the disease, and then that would lead us possibly to a treatment, right? But we have to be more in discovery mode so that we can have like an unbiased view of the system in order to develop a treatment. But more recently, I found that in the grant reviews, at least in the virology, they just wanted a treatment right away. I think people know we can do that. We did do that as a scientific community.
They saw it happen once. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then I was like, oh, okay, I really need to submit something more translational. But luckily I had two grants, or two projects. So I was renewing at the same time one for my virology research, which right now I've put on the back burner to develop a more translational project on treating HIV, which we had anyways. And there was just so many things going on. We set it aside. So we revived it. But I did get my cancer project funded again. And that's still very fundamental kind of discovery science. So I think that didn't affect all the fields, but I think it did make the scientific field as a whole realize that we can do more together. We can be more translational. And maybe the way that it's affected things also is that there was so many publications coming out so fast in the pandemic. And some people realized that the data in the research wasn't reliable. And there's many reasons for that. Sometimes that happens. And then a lot of papers were retracted. And I think, I'm not sure about the statistics, if it was any more retractions than usual, but there was such a flurry of papers, that, and then people were trying
corresponding. Yeah.
Yeah. And people were trying to put it out so fast. And then, something else happened. They're like, well, that wasn't exactly correct. It wasn't like anything intentional. It was just that, maybe something that they were stating wasn't tested 100% in the rush to do things. So I think one thing that's changed is that the expectation to show the same result in many different experimental systems has increased. So if you have, like, you're showing one result, like about how a virus replicates, or how a drug would work in cancer, or how one gene, if you knock down a gene, you stop a gene from expressing its protein, it's going to change the cell in a certain way. So you used to be able just to show that, and then that would be like your story, and you'd say, what are the effects and things. So now they want to know, well, if you change this in a cell, is it just specific to that cell, or what about cells from other parts of the body or other cancers, or, and then they want you to show something. Maybe you might use a microscope to look at something, and then they want you to actually take those proteins out of the cell in addition to looking at them inside the cell and show that, they have the same interaction or function. They might want you to do, instead of using human cells in a tissue culture dish, they might also want you to do the studies in an animal model, like a mouse model. So now the expectation to publish a paper in the Biomedical Sciences, I feel like, has increased because people want to make sure that the conclusions are very robust. So that's where it kind of ties into the need for like infrastructure, because all these methods take usually a piece of equipment to visualize something or get a readout about the cell. And then a lot of them are very specific. You have to know a lot about the instrument to use it correctly and interpret the data. And so then I think that what researchers have, expressed as a need is the development of these core equipment labs. So we would have labs with equipment existing under a specific theme, and then having an expert to run those equipment or advise on or train students on how to use the equipment. So then when you're asked to say, like, each lab has their own method that they're kind of the most proficient at. And so that would be like the primary evidence in a research paper. But then when you submit it for review, they might ask you, well, can you show it with microscopy instead of, purified proteins? Can you show it, in another, I can't think of all the different ways, but that's an easy comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, sometimes you need things happen in individual cells, and you're looking at a population. They might want you to separate out individual cells and do a comparison. So it would take a long time to learn that for every lab to know every method. You can find a collaborator, but sometimes they're not as invested in your research or your timeline. Really lucky if you do.
Yeah.
And so that's where like that it's kind of changed, that there's the expectation is higher for biomedical scientists, I think, to publish. They have to show multiple lines of evidence that support the same conclusion.
So the bar is really raised with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has been. Yeah.
Oh, and yeah, okay, I want to show this in a second or a third or a fourth way, but I'm going to have to wait 2 years before I can get the
Yeah.
equipment. That doesn't seem like it's as sustainable anymore. Like if you could walk in and be like, "Hey, I need to run this. Can you help me?" And somebody dedicated was there. Yeah, I'll show you how
Yeah.
to use this. Let's go together. That
Right.
does make a
Yeah.
lot of sense. But you're going to need some core equipment.
Yes, and that is the issue, that the when you submit a grant, it takes like an equipment grant. It probably takes 6 months to get reviewed, and then it might take another year to actually get the equipment. So yeah, it can amount to like a 2-year process to get the equipment, or 1 to 2 years. So we know kind of what the main equipment is that people need. So we're hoping to just have it here before and they can just walk in and say, and so it might be a need for a small number of people now, but if it's there, more people would use it. I mean, probably some people are having collaborators or avoiding using a certain method just because, it's difficult. So if we have everything there, it'll just enhance our research grant success, our success at our papers, and our actual research that we're hoping to, translate into into something that'll improve our treatments for disease.
Well, it sounds like you already have a pretty lengthy to-do list of
Yeah.
investment in research and that infrastructure in the actual machines we need to do the research. Definitely telling the community more about what you're going to do. Are there any other musts on this to-do list as a new vice dean?
Yeah, I think the collaboration piece is really important. So CIHR, our major funding body, they're releasing some analyses of all their funding. So they're one of the major national funding organizations through the federal government. And then they've been analyzing who got funded and whether people that form teams are more likely to get funded than people that work individually. And so they did, I mean, there's some specifics in fields, but they did notice that team grants were had an increased chance of success. And I think it has to do with like the different types of methods that they can approach, where they can approach problems. So the chance of discovering something novel or that it can be translated into a treatment is just higher, right? And then it probably puts a lot more confidence in the reviewers that the research is going to be feasible. And so that's something that we want to do, and that I'm hoping with a counterpart of a vice dean that has a different research focus than me in clinical and population health or health systems can help us to collaborate together, because we have a large proportion of clinical researchers, a large proportion of biomedical scientists, and some of them, as I said, have found collaborations with each other. Some people haven't. There's a real chance with new hires to try to strategically hire in people that can collaborate. So, I mean, the end goal would to create like kind of a spectrum where people are still doing their biomedical fundamental science, and then and then collaborating with a clinical person and doing preclinical research. So that would be in a specific animal model that can be kind of more directly translated into humans, or gives people's research, the indication whether this could be a viable treatment in humans, and then it can move into a phase 1 clinical trial. So also in College of Medicine, we do have the clinical trial service unit, which will be more the expertise management. The management of that will lie under the expertise of the other vice dean of research. And so you can have investigator-led clinical trials, which I'm hoping we can increase the number that would result from biomedical fundamental discovery that, translates into something preclinical and then clinical. And we can have that here at the University of Saskatchewan. So yeah, and then through all that will increase our grant success, which will increase, our training of new researchers. So people will be trained on those research grants to do research and earn a PhD or a master's degree, or just get extra research after the PhD, which is called being a postdoctoral researcher. So we're also training the next generation of scientists when we bring in grant funding. We're advancing the science, and then hopefully advancing a treatment. So, I mean, that is something that I've considered. Now I've been at the university 16 years, and I did really want to, improve or develop a treatment for the diseases I studied. And I didn't kind of know how I'd get there in the beginning because I was really in the fundamental discovery mode. But as I
Yeah.
transitioned into leadership, and then I have to be more intentional about maintaining my research program while I have also, leadership responsibilities, I've really kind of asked myself, like, well, what's the most important thing to do? And so I'm trying to have also a more translational focus in my own lab. And I think a lot of people want that, right? But it does take a team. It takes a team. One person can't do that, or it would take a lot longer. So we're hoping to help people assemble those teams.
I actually did want to ask because I mean I liked giving mutants a chance when we last talked about it, and I was wondering like what how does this with the new position and the way it's sort of split, what does that mean for your work? And I think it was the APOBEC group of enzymes that you were really looking at.
Yeah.
What happens now for you?
Well, the vision is that it is a 50% administrative position. So that's why there's two vice deans of research, each working at 50%. So together will equal the 100% that used to be one position. And then the other 50%, we're keeping so that we can have our research program. I can have maintain my research program. So yeah, so I'm still doing my research, and I'm supervising graduate students. I'll still be teaching one graduate course, and yeah, so I that is something that definitely makes me very happy. I don't know what I'd do if I didn't do research. Yeah, so
And it's funny because we've talked with so many wonderful scientists on campus who, and then some of them work in hospital settings, some of them it's over at the College of Engineering. Sometimes it's everywhere in between. But for people who haven't been to the University of Saskatchewan yet, or who are sort of weighing, oh, should I go there for grad studies? I'm a postdoc. Is this where I want to move? Is there anything you wish you could tell them, like that's not necessarily in the brochure?
yeah, it's a really great university that's been growing and changing. So, yeah, I think when I came here 16 years ago, there had been one hire 3 years before me. And before that, there hadn't been a new hire for, 10 or 15 years or something. But since I was
Nice.
hired, yeah, since I was hired 16 years ago, there's been a new faculty member hired, like a biomedical scientist, every single year, at least one. So there's a huge renewal going on. And that might not be original to Saskatchewan. I think the kind of renewal of faculty retiring and hiring is going across Canada. But I think what's really special about here is that in because we are in Saskatchewan, there was always a large focus on the agricultural college. And then when this health sciences complex was built and when that kind of renewal of faculty started, the university has been investing more and more time and resources into health sciences. So I think it's a really great time to be here as a biomedical researcher because there's a really big chance to have an impact on what the future will be because we're in a time of renewal. So a lot of the new faculty are going to be part of the decision process that forms what the new college will be. And as a student training here, I think that it's really good because of the smaller college that we have. You can interact with more researchers, I think, more easily. People are very collaborative here, and we also have probably every single college that a university could have, which isn't always seen. Like we're not, so we have a college in veterinary medicine, and there's lots of collaborations that people have in multiple departments with veterinary medicine. There's collaborations through College of Medicine with the engineering department, like in biomedical engineering. And then there's lots of shared resources that it might not be the same field, but then you might use the same technology with people in other fields like biology or veterinary applications. We have College of Pharmacy and Nutrition in the same building, dentistry, nursing. So I don't want to miss someone who else is in this
Yeah.
building. But I mean, it's really not just College of Medicine, it's a health sciences complex. And because we're smaller, then it's not like everyone has their own building. You interact with, I think, different fields easier when you come here, and people are very
Oh yeah.
collaborative. So
Yeah. Well, and if I think about it too, just across campus, like a very short walk away, you've got the Canadian Light Source, you've got
Yeah.
Vito. There's a
Yeah.
lot happening in terms of putting together research. So, oh, I'm really excited for you, Linda. Thank you so much for taking time for us. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
here's to the next 100, I think.
Yeah. Well, I'll be hopefully part of the planning on sending you some names. So,
You bet. Yeah, no, we
yeah.
really appreciate it. And good luck. This is
Thank
really
you.
exciting news.
Thanks.
Dr. Linda Chelico is the Vice Dean of Research, Biomedical Research, that is, at the University of Saskatchewan's College of Medicine. And yeah, this was episode number 100 on the show. As you heard, Dr. Chelico is still going to maintain her own research career. And yes, soon the college will be joined by another Vice Dean of Research, one overseeing our clinical trial unit. The future is pretty bright for science here. So thank you for listening to Researchers Under the Scope. This is a presentation of the Office of the Vice Deans of Research at the University of Saskatchewan's College of Medicine. We record and we produce this broadcast here on Treaty 6 territory, and we pay our respect to the First Nations and Métis ancestors of this place. This is where we reaffirm our relationship with one another and where we say thank you for listening. I'm your host, Jen Cannell. Thank you for being with us here through all 100 episodes of Researchers Under the Scope.